In this video, I'll walk you through the string data type. I'll be talking about strings as arrays, string looping, checking a string, slicing strings, and many more. Let's get started. Now, a great way to identify a string is that it is always surrounded by quotation marks, either single or double. It doesn't matter which one you use. Now, you can display, which means show the user a string using the print function. You can also use a string in a variable, like we said last time, before displaying it. So for example, you could have the print, parentheses, and then quotation marks inside, and then you put in your string, your text. And it's also the same thing as if you use single quotes or double quotes. Also, you can use quotes inside strings as long as they don't match the surrounding string. Now you can have print, blue isn't green. Obviously, when you put isn't, you use a single quote. But then that single quote must not match the outer double quotes. So that means that you cannot use single quotes for that string. You could also assign a string to a variable and then print it out. That means that you put the variable into the print function to print out what is inside the variable. For example, I could have greet equals to string hello. Then I would say print greet. And then when I print that, the result is hello. You could also assign a multi-line string to a variable using 3 quotes. It could be 3 double quotes or 3 single quotes. So that means that you can press enter and move to a different line inside the same string. For example, I could have shopping list and then I have 3 quotes and I say at the store, buy milk, sugar, honey, carrots, onion. All in one string. Now, strings is arrays. Now, in Python, each string character is Unicode character in a string array. A single string character has a length of 1, and it can be accessed using square brackets. Remember that the first character or item of any array has the position or index of 0. Now, let's say, for example, I have a variable called language, which is equals to string Python. And I print out language and I put square brackets and I put 0 inside. Because the first character is always with the index 0, then it prints out the first character, which is P. If I do the same thing, but then this time I put 1 inside the square brackets, then it gives me Y, which is the next letter. Then I put in 2, then it gives me T, which is the next letter. And then I put in 3, it gives me H, which is the next letter, and so on. Note that every character, even a space, has this index. Now, since strings are arrays, we can loop through the characters in a string using the for loop. And we're going to talk about this later. But for now, let's just touch on it a little bit. Now we have for I in the string Python, and then we put a colon, and then we put indentation, and we print I, or put in the function, or we put in what we want it to do, the line of code. Now, what this does is that it goes through every index, every position in that string, and it brings out the character in that position and print each of them in every loop. That means it goes what we did before, where we put 0 in the square brackets, 1, 2, 3. This is just an easier way of doing that. So all we just have to do is put in this loop, and then it does that, all of that without us having to put in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and stuff like that. So what this does is it prints P on one line, Y on one line, T on one line, H on one line, 0 O on one line, and N on one line. Now we're also going to be talking about the length of a string. Now the length of a string can be known using the len function, len, which returns the length of a function. Let's say I have greet equals to hello. I can print len of greet, and that prints out the length of hello. Now, if we have H1, he1, hell1, L1, O1, that is 5 letters. So the length of greet is 5. The length of hello is 5. Now in Python, we can check a string. We can check if a certain character or phrase or word is present in a string using the keyword in. Now let's say I have greet equals to hello. I can print and check if ELL is in greet, which is in hello. And that is going to give me a bool. So it's going to tell me whether it's either true or false. Now I can also have color. I can have blue isn't green. And I can check if the word or phrase green is in color. And the fact is that it is in color. So that gives me true. Now we can also check if a certain character, phrase, or word is not present in a string using the keyword not in. So let's say again, we have greet equals to hello. Then I can print if EL is not in greet. But it is in greet, so the fact that it is not in greet is false. Now we also have color. I have blue isn't green. If I print red not in color, red is not inside that string, so it is true that red is not in the color. You can return a range of characters from a string using the slice syntax. To return a range of characters, you have to specify the start and the end index or the position separated by a colon. So let's say I have something like greet equals to hello, and I print greet, then I open square bracket and I put 1 colon 4. Then that gives me ELL. One thing to remember is that index starts from 0, so H in this place is 0. When slicing, the character in the end index that is specified, in this case 4, is not returned. That means that greet 4 is O, but the string returned from the slicing does not include O, so it stops at ELL. So it goes from the start to the number before the end index. Now, by excluding the start index, the range automatically starts at the first character with the index of 0. So if I went and I just put colon and 3, it automatically starts from 0. So that means it goes from the start of the string to the number before the end index. Again, by excluding the end index this time, the range automatically ends at the last character. So if I start from 2, then it goes to the end. So it starts from 2, which here is L, and it ends all the way at the end of the string. So that gives us LLO. Now there's something called negative indexing, and this is where the last character in the string has the index of -1, with the penultimate character having an index of -2 and so on. So if you don't know what the index of the last character in the string is, so let's say hello or anything in the string, but I don't know what the length is, so I can't tell what the end of the string is, what the index of the end of the string is. So what you do is you just put -1 for the last character, because no matter the length of the string, the last character will always have the negative index of -1. And then the second to the last one will be -2, and the third to the last one will be -3, and so on and so forth. We're going to be talking about a few string methods. There'll be a later video about this. It's going to go much more into detail, but we're just going to touch on it a little bit here. So first method we're going to talk about is the uppercase and capitalize. So the upper parenthesis method turns a string into uppercase. So it's very simple what it does. So let's say I have a string. I have a variable called greet equals to hello world. If I put greet.upper, which is the name of the variable greet.upper, it returns, and make sure, don't forget, make sure that you put parentheses after the upper. And this just basically gives the same string just in capital letters. Now, the capitalized method changes only the first character in the string to a capital letter and the rest to lowercase. So if I say greet dot capitalize here with parentheses in the front, then it's going to have capital H and the rest is just small letters. Also, we've got the lower method, which turns a string into lowercase. So the same thing, but this time it returns smaller case hello world. We've also got the split string, and the split method splits the string when the specified character is found, resulting in a list. So let's say I have greet.split and I want it to split at the comma. So what it does is once it finds a comma in that string, then it keeps what was before it keeps it as an item in a list. And then what is after the comma becomes another item in a list. So basically what it does is it separates them at the comma. Now another method is the replace string. The replace method changes or replaces part of a string with another string. So let's say I have hello world, and what I want to do is, let's say, that's a replace hello with hi. So what I just do is put greet.replace parentheses hello, which is what I want to replace, comma, hi, which is what I want to replace it with. Now another method is the strip method. And what the strip method does is it removes any character, any space character that is before any other character or after the last character. So it basically removes space, white space removal. It removes space characters from the start or from the end. And you do it the same way, you just put greet, which is the name of the variable, dot strip, parentheses. Now, you can actually use more than one method in one line. So if I said, okay, greet equals to space, hello world, space, I can do greet dot strip with a parenthesis. That means that first of all, it removes the space at the start and at the end, and then that dot upper with parentheses. So what that does is, first of all, it removes the spaces, and secondly, it makes the string hello world, it makes it uppercase. So you can use more than one method in one line because it sees it as greet.strip is a different string, and then it uppers it changes that string into uppercase. So what you get at the end is hello world with no spaces at the front or at the end, and it's in capital letters. Note that string methods do not change the original string. They only return new values. So no matter what we do, no matter what method we use, greet does not change from the original string. The only thing it does when you use a method is it just temporarily brings it out to you. It temporarily prints it out to you, except you put it in a variable. When you put it in a variable, then it saves the result of that method. But the original string stays the same. Now we're going to be talking about string concatenation. It's actually quite simple. So let's say I have a variable called A1 and I have hi in it, the string hi, and A2 I have the string there. A equals A1 plus A2. So what it does is it gives me hi there because I added both strings together. Remember, you cannot add numbers together. You cannot add, numbers and strings together, but you can add strings together. But it cannot go from numbers to strings. It cannot add them together. So when I say A1 plus A2, both are strings, it gives me hi there, but it's not readable. It doesn't have a space in between. So what I can do here is in the A2 string, there, I just put space before there. And then it just automatically prints it out as hi, space there. Or I could change the variable and just have it as A equals A1, which is hi, plus space in strings, plus A2, which is there, plus any other character. So that makes it much more readable. You can also concatenate strings immediately in the print function, but this means that we cannot use the concatenated string again. So it's just better to store it in a variable. So basically what the plus operator does is that it merges strings together. Now, as we said before, we cannot combine strings with numbers. It causes an error. The F string can actually combine strings with numbers in an interesting way. And it was introduced in Python 3.6, so it won't work in earlier versions. To make a string an F string, you have to put an F before the string quotes, and you're going to use curly brackets around the placeholders for variables, numbers, operations, functions, and modifiers. You understand what I mean in a bit. Now, a modifier is used by adding a colon followed by legal formatting type like .3f, which basically results in a number to 3 decimal places. Placeholders can also contain other Python code like math operations and even function calling. So to make it understandable, let's give an example. So let's say we have student name equals to Ruth Naomi. And we have score. Let's say we want to put together the scores and give it as a statement. So we have the scores. First score on the first test is 32.42. And the score on the second test is 45.501. So I can have a variable called final score, which is the statement I want to give out. And I say F before it, because obviously I'm using an F string, so I can put it all together. So I say final score for, I want to put Ruth Naomi, so I just put in student name is, so what it does is that it puts in the student name, it puts in Ruth Naomi because that is what is inside the variable student name. So is, and then obviously another curly brackets. I can put in operations. So I want to add both scores together. I just put brackets, add them together, 32.4 plus 45.501. It gives me the answer. And then not only do I want to add them together, I want it to 3 decimal places. So what I do is I put semicolon dot 3f. If I wanted to 2 decimal places, I put dot 2f. If I wanted to 4 decimal places, I put dot 4f. And I close the curly brackets and finish with quotes. And what it does is that the result, and if I print that variable out, it gives me final score for Ruth Naomi is 77.921. So string formatting makes strings, printing out strings, putting in values from variables, it makes them so much easier. And it's my favorite and probably the most efficient way to print out strings. Still adding in stuff from variables and different additions and stuff. So string formatting using the F string is it for me. To insert illegal characters in a string, we use an escape character, which, to be honest, can be a lot of different characters, but the most basic one is a backslash followed by the illegal character. So you know how we said that in a string, when you use double quotes or single quotes, if you use double quotes, you cannot have another double quote inside the string. It's going to cause an error. And if you have single quotes, you cannot use another single quote inside the string. It is going to cause an error. So what we do is that we put an escape character before the legal character. So how I love to think about it is that the escape character guards the illegal character from being seen. So let's say I wanted to put, I wanted to sort of make it clear. I wanted to sort of make a phrase inside my string clear, and I want to use that I want to put that using quotes. So what I do is I use an escape character before the quotes so that they don't cause an error. So let's say I have a string called blue is in green, and I use double quotes outside it. The single quote in the isn't is absolutely fine because it doesn't match with the surrounding quotes. But let's say I wanted to put double quotes around blue and green. I have to use an escape character before the quote for blue, before every quote for blue, and before every quote for green. Now, there's some escape characters in Python that you can use for different things. So the most basic one, which you've gone through, is a backslash, which works for single quotes as well, for single quotes and double quotes. Now we've got double backslash, and this one is to print out or to put in your string a backslash. So if I want to print out one backslash, I need to put two. Another one is a backslash, then n. That one basically just goes to a new line. So from that point onwards, the string continues on a new line. Another one is backslash, then r. And this one overrides the preceding characters. So let's say I had something like blue isn't green. And then after the isn't, I have backslash and r. So what it does is it clears out all the blue isn't and just replaces it with green, replaces it with what is after it. Next up, we have backslash with a T, and that is just for a tab. Backslash with a B, that is for a backspace. Backslash with a OOO, that is to get the octal value. And backslash with an XHH, that is to get the hex value. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope that you enjoyed it. See you next week with another video.